You know, in Matthew's gospel and in Luke's gospel, two stories are told by Jesus. They're both told from a little different angle. But in Luke, the story is told of a man, a nobleman, who was going to go away for a time and receive a kingdom and come back. And before he left, he brought in 10 of his servants, and he gave them each a mina, a kind of coinage, which would have been the equivalent of maybe 100 days' worth wages. And he gave one to each of them, and he said, hey, take this, use it while I'm gone, and when I come back, let me see what you've got on the return of the investment, and I'll reward you for it. So, he goes off, and of course the little delegation, he says, follows the nobleman out and says, we don't want this man to rule and reign over us. And of course that was an obvious picture of the Jewish people at that time who didn't want Jesus to be their king. But anyway, you have this nobleman returning, and he takes out of the 10, he takes 3 guys, and he brings them forward. And one of the guys had taken the mina, and that mina had turned from 1 into 10. Another guy comes forward, that mina had turned from 1 to 5. But then another guy comes, and he has the 1 mina in his hand, and he says, you know what? He says, here it is. Here's the 1 mina that you gave me. I was afraid of you. I knew you were a hard man, and that you take sometimes what's not even yours. You have the power to do that. And rather than me taking the risk and letting this mina do its thing by investing it, I held on to it, knowing that I could get it back to you. Of course, the landowner was not happy, and he took that away and gave it to the guy that had 10. That doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense, or what doesn't seem fair, but hey, when is grace ever fair according to our standards? And he gives it to this guy who's got 10, and then this one fellow who didn't invest it, he has to go through a very, very difficult time of loss and tribulation and pain. As you read that story, it's a really accurate picture of how a lot of us in the church live our lives. God has entrusted us with a gift, faith. He's entrusted us with the gift of life, eternal life. He's given us gifts. He's given us abilities. Many times, though, we're afraid to invest those. And the reason why we're afraid is because we're afraid of failing. And our concept of God blocks us from taking that step of faith, because we think God is just like that perception of that guy to the landowner. You're hard. You're a hard taskmaster. You're not a nice guy. And if I blow it, I take this and try to invest it and I fail, you're going to be mad at me. You're going to reject me. You're going to judge me. You're going to come against me with all kinds of judgments in my life because I didn't succeed. I failed. Of course, the Jewish people at that time, the leaders especially, that kind of image of God was very helpful to them to be able to control and to manipulate the people by using that fear. But as I said, a lot of us are afraid, and our concept of God is so screwed up and so wrong that we are not willing to take risks of faith for the sake of the kingdom. There are many of you sitting out there right now watching this, that if I were to ask you this question, and I do ask this question in all sincerity, how would you answer it? If you could do anything right now and know that you would not fail, what would it be? What is the passion that you have bubbling in your heart? What is it that you would just love doing, that you would get up every day and pay somebody else just for the opportunity to be able to do it because you love it so much? Sometimes the way that God guides us in our lives into the things that He leads us and endeavors He leads us into for the kingdom is by desire and by passion, and those things that He's given to us and the longings that we have, and those things begin to be matched up with gifts that we have in our lives to equip us to be able to fulfill that passion. And that doesn't mean that all of us are going to, leave our jobs, sell our houses, and move to some foreign country. It doesn't mean that we're all going to go out and change the world overnight. The world that God may want us to change through that particular passion or desire may be the person living next door to you, or in the next cubicle with you at the office, or in the grocery line behind you. I mean, think about this. How many people do you know today that you didn't know a year ago, that you have built a bridge to, that you've sought to build a relationship with in some way, that you might just be able to show them love. Maybe the thing that God is calling you to do may be simply as simple as going out and reaching across the fence to your neighbor, getting to know them, and show them some love. It all starts with little things. But a lot of us are afraid to step out and do anything because we're afraid of failing. Because we're afraid that if we step out and we quote unquote fail, God will be disappointed. He's a hard taskmaster. But the reality is, the gift that He's given you, the gift of faith, the gift of life, as you invest that, there is a natural process to it bringing back a return, all on its own. The story that Jesus told didn't tell us how those guys invested those things and what they did with them, but there was enough power within what they had that there was a return investment. Believe you me, the faith that God has given you, the life of Christ within you, you invest that in the lives of other people, and there will always be a return. But if you sit back because of fear, you're going to miss out on adventure. You're going to miss out on fruit. You're going to miss out on the opportunity to be a blessing to someone else. Many Christians today that I know are bored stiff, bored in their relationship with God, bored with life. They're just existing. Don't be one of those. Take what God has given to you. Step out. Get out of your boat. Get on the water. Start walking with Him. Invest that little mina that He has entrusted to you, and let it bring a return that will lead you into some of the greatest adventures you could ever dream of in your walk with God. Spend some time today beholding Him who is beholding you and smiling.